It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought us to the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained by rational principles the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the powerful Kingdom of England and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and he explained it in ways that were understandable to the people, to all of the people. A great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we are able to reason, we're able to talk to each other, we're able to listen to each other, and we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it. Hello again, this is Rudy Giuliani with Rudy Giuliani's Common Sense, and today we have a guest that I admire greatly. I came to admire him when he was governor. I came to really appreciate him when I ran against him in the 2007-2008 campaign, and then when he did it again in 2016. I think this man, I guess, there are certain situations like this, would have been a fine president. He would still be a fine president, but he's also a tremendous addition to our world of comment, which is so important, and alternative comment, which is a little narrower. And I think you know who I'm talking about, the 44th governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. He was governor from 96 to 2007. He was a candidate for president twice, very credible candidate for president twice, 2008, 2016. He's been on television a great deal, expressing his views. He has a TV show called Huckabee on TBN, which is both politically entertaining and entertaining. He's got the best sense of humor in politics, documentary called An Inconvenient Truth, and of course he's got a wonderful family, his wife Janet. The whole world knows Sarah Sanders. Of course, she's better than he is, but everybody knows that. And then he has John and David, and he's just a wonderful guy. Governor, it's really a pleasure to have you on the show. I mean pleasure.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. You know, you were talking about that Sarah's a lot better. Every time I ever talk to the president, the conversation goes like this. He says, Huckabee, I like you. You're a great guy. I like you. You're great. But your daughter, she's better. She's way better than you. So what you just said is exactly what President Trump says to me every time we have a conversation. But it's a compliment. As you well know, because you've got great kids, no parent is ever jealous of his or her child's success. That's for sure.
He knows that too. He has been doing that to me with Andrew for years. Before Andrew came to work for him, Andrew played golf with him. So constantly he would say, you know, even in front of people, you know, his son's a great golfer. Didn't get it from him. Every once in a while he'll call me up and he'll say, Mayor, you want to play golf today? I say, yeah. He said, I'm not playing well. I can play with you this weekend because I'm not playing very well this week.
That sounds right.
And I know, and I agree with you. When you hear that, you're sky high.
Absolutely.
You know. So I want to go right to the Supreme Court because I guess this is the most pressing issue. We have an opening on the Supreme Court. It happens 40 days or less before the election. Last time, we Republicans did a really good job, tough job, because it was a long time, preventing them from doing an appointment that would have thrown the Supreme Court left. We want to do an appointment now, number one, just long-term, ideological. We have a right to do that. We were elected. But number two, we have this pressing issue of almost a prediction from the Democrats that they are going to contest this election every way they can. The odds are pretty strong something is going to go to the Supreme Court, and it would be 4-4. So, first of all, does the president have the authority to do this? And then politically, is it wise for him to do it?
Well, according to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he not only has the authority to do it, but he has a duty to do it. That's what she said in 2016. It's what Barack Obama did in 2016. It's what Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, Tim Kaine, and every other Democrat said in 2016 that a president absolutely does not cease to be president just because it's an election year. That was consistent, without an exception. Every Democrat said that. So now their words, we take them to mean what they say. And I'm grateful that the Democrats have so teed this up for President Trump so that as he makes this nomination, he can do so knowing that he will absolutely have the full support of the entire Democrat Party who are with him on this. So bravo. Thank you, Hillary and Joe and Chuck, all of you. Thank you so much for just standing with the president on this.
Do we have any comments from Nadler on this? Remember, he was dead set against impeachment.
Yeah.
When Clinton, and then of course he was gung ho for impeachment by any means against Trump. So I don't know. They seem to change their mind.
Yeah, Jerry Nadler is a unique case. He's the guy that sees a city burning, looks it right in the face, and says, "Yeah, that's a myth. That's really not happening." He'd be better off if he'd just stick to going to Nancy Pelosi's house and having some of that wonderful ice cream that she keeps in her $10,000 freezers. This is a comedy show all to itself. Watching the Democrats actually turn into nothing short of Auntie Anne's pretzels, all twisted up, trying to explain themselves and the inconsistency. Now, to be fair, there were some Republicans in 2016 who said that we shouldn't pursue in an election year. But the difference is Mitch McConnell, who's a shrewd political broker, as we both know.
We do.
He was very careful in saying that it was because that there was a different party in the Senate than was in the White House. Fact is, 15 of the, a third, which is about 15 of all of the presidents in our history have made election year appointments to the Supreme Court. So if the Democrats and CNN, but then I repeat myself, if they try to tear their shirts and act like there's something completely amiss about this process, they really have failed history. But then again, we kind of know that already.
Well, so I mean, you read the Constitution. The president could nominate someone for the Supreme Court, to the last moment he's president.
Yeah.
It might not be practical, but the power is there. The Senate has the time to get through it, even if they do the actual confirmation after the election. But they could actually do the whole thing before. They've done confirmation hearings in shorter period of time.
They have.
It also looks like he's going to pick a federal judge, who's been nominated and approved within the last 2 years, who therefore has had a full and complete FBI check. That only has to be, way back in the Reagan administration, I was the point man for appointments of U.S. attorneys, U.S. marshals, and judges, the district judges. So the background check for Supreme Court is just a little bit heavier. And by the way, when these people were selected, they were already on his list.
Yeah.
To be on the Supreme Court. So I happen to know they got a super check.
Yeah.
And now we'll take a short break. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home. And title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code RUDY, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HomeTitleLock.com. Welcome back, and we'll continue this really, really interesting interview. So that FBI report will be back in half the time that it usually is back. But what about the politics of it? How does it play out in the president's favor, or are the people going to be annoyed that he's rushing this through?
I think if he doesn't do this, Mayor, it's going to hurt him with his own supporters and voters. We expect him to take this action. We want him to take this action. The country needs him to take this action. You brought it up early on that we need a full Supreme Court of 9 members. You don't want to have a 4-4 tie. But there's also another reason. He is the president. And I know that just chaps Hillary and some others who still have a warehouse full of helium balloons they never got to use. But the fact is, he's the president. There is a vacancy. He has the constitutional authority to it. And if he doesn't do it, it's going to be very disappointing to many people for whom their vote for president is, as much as anything, a vote for the long-term impact that president will have, not just on the Supreme Court, but on all the federal judgeships. This president has been magnificent in the manner of which he has appointed people. He's done something that is without historical precedent. He has given us a long list of the people that he believes are qualified for the federal bench, all the way up to the Supreme Court. So rather than hiding this and slipping one in on us, this is a president who's been incredibly transparent. He's put good people on the court in Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, despite what they went through to get there, especially Kavanaugh. Will it hurt him with some people? It could. Let's be honest. It may rankle some people. The press will treat this like he's done something absolutely unconscionable. But Mayor, you and I both know the press is going to treat him horribly if he does it. If he doesn't do it, there's nothing he can do that will ever earn the press praise for his actions. And I'll tell you how we know that. When the Abraham Accords were signed, which
I'm glad you mentioned those.
Amazingly historic. This is monumental and seminal in the course of Middle East peace process.
Of course they are.
The press still ignored it. And in the press conference, not one question was asked of the press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, about the Accords. They wanted to know how come that the Israeli prime minister and the representatives from the UAE and Bahrain and the president weren't wearing masks. And I'm thinking, you guys need to be wearing gags in your mouth if that's the best you've got. You ignored this extraordinary accomplishment, and all you want to talk about is what kind of mask they should have been wearing and how far they should have been standing apart. And I'm scratching my head saying, you guys, it's like going to the final game. This you can relate to. The Yankees are in the World Series. You're in Yankee Stadium. The Yankees score a grand slam and win by 1 in the bottom of the ninth, and somebody says, you know, the hot dogs just weren't as good as they were last night. This is the insanity.
When you watch this, Governor, because I'm glad I could ask you this, because this is almost like counseling for me. When you watch this, don't you find you can't believe the intellectual dishonesty? I mean, just stepping back from it, how I can understand some of the politically contentious things. Hasn't been an agreement in that part of the world in 27 years.
Yeah.
There's never been an agreement with an Arab state on the peninsula. They had Jordan, but Jordan's their neighbor, and Egypt.
Yeah.
But not Saudi Arabia, not UAE, not Qatar, none of those. I know, because I've worked there a lot, that they are truly in fear of revolution should they recognize Israel.
Sure.
Not from their normal citizens, but they have terrorists in their country, like we have terrorists in our country.
Right.
And they're afraid of the street, of its erupting. This was a courageous thing for them to do, and I do think it's a first step to bringing in Oman, Kuwait, and then the big one, Saudi Arabia. This is monumental.
It truly is. And I've been going to Israel since 1973. I was 17 years old when I first visited there. I've been all over the Middle East many times. I'm there several times a year.
I know you are. I've
Um,
seen you there.
this is one of those issues where, as much as anyone, I've been amazed at how this president has finessed this because most people thought he was going about it all wrong. Turns out it was everybody else who was wrong. And the president recognized that if you keep doing the same thing you've been doing, but you expect a different result, you really are fulfilling the definition of insanity. So he did something completely unconventional. But what he has done by bringing the UAE and Bahrain, and hopefully very soon some other nations, he's helped them to recognize that Israel is not their enemy. Israel doesn't want their sand, doesn't want anything they've got, will never invade them, will never encroach upon their territory because they could care less about what's going on in the UAE or among the Saudis. It is not their concern. Their concern is simply having their own borders, having them protected, and living in peace. And so they all now recognize that the real threat, not just to Israel, but to the other Arab Gulf states, is Iran. It isn't
Right.
Israel. And so their common interest is now being played out. And when the president moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he did that, as you well know, in the face of every country in the world, including our best friends, telling him not to do it because the Middle East would go up like a smoke bomb. John Kerry and others beating their chest about how terrible this is going to be. Well, it turned out that it worked out just fine. And I think a lot of the Arab countries saw that and realized, you know, this may be an opportunity for us to move, uh, create alliances with Israel. There's no real downside. There's a great upside economically and militarily and from a security standpoint, and ultimately isolate Iran and give the Iranian people the courage, the power, and the incentive to overthrow this terrorist government that has been trampling them since 1979.
Well, their intellectual dishonesty is so great that none of the great genius foreign policy people with the Council on Foreign Relations and the New York Times can go to the next step, which is this is a big, big, big move against Iran.
Yes, it is.
This is exactly what we lost. Remember, he was the one who opposed the Iraq War. He opposed the Iraq War really because he thought Iraq was a check on Iran. We take out Saddam Hussein, whatever else you think about the Iraq War, pro or con, it did leave a big gap. Our bungling Democratic candidate for president, Joe Biden, goes there to negotiate a status of forces agreement that would have left troops there. He fails completely. Fails completely. Our troops are gone. Now, I represent Iranian refugees that are in Iraq who had the promise of protection from our government. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama would not honor that promise. They were killed because Biden failed. Biden's failures result in death for certain people. The fact that he's an incompetent is not just a joke. So 120 of our MEK people were killed before we could get them out and go to Albania. So what happened is, and Barack Obama does deserve credit for this, he empowered Iran so much that it took over Iraq. It became much more friendly with Turkey. And if you want to look at a map, hegemony. The entire northern Middle East could become the part of the Iranian Empire. That frightened the heck, particularly out of Saudi Arabia. And I think that began, we got to do something about it. Some genius, who I can't remember, wrote an article saying there's a pretty good alliance you could do because in the south, you got the greatest army in the region, much better than Iran, Israel. Got the second greatest, Egypt. And you got the richest country, Saudi Arabia. And then you got a bunch of pretty good countries. They can match Iran, gun for gun. And then you have America behind them. And I think that is part of the switch around. And then they say, well, what about the Palestinian people being left out of this? That's the other criticism that you get of this. What do you think of that?
The Palestinians weren't left out. The Palestinians refused to show up for any discussion, as they have since forever. Let's remember 1993 and the Oslo Accords. They pretty much got what they wanted, but they never wanted what they got. And then in 1995, when they were offered 95% of everything they were asked for, Arafat got up and walked away because Mayor, it's a lot like the Democrats in Washington. And I know I'll get in trouble for making the analogy, but no matter what you offer them, they never want it. They never accept it because it's not about bringing about justice or peace. Their one goal is not what they have, it's what they can keep Israel from having. And Golda Meir in 1973 made the most astute statement. She said, "We'll have peace with the Palestinians when they love their own children more than they hate ours." And that's really why the Palestinians are still hanging around with little or nothing. But the truth is, the Israelis, when they have been able to, have given the Palestinians economic prosperity and jobs until the BDS movement comes along and destroys it. And a great specific example of that, the SodaStream company, Israeli-based company, built a plant in Judea. They employed 1,100 people. 600 of them were Palestinian, 500 were Israeli. So there was a predominant Palestinian workforce. They gave them wages 4 times better than they'd ever had in their lives, full health benefits, vacation, retirement, food at work, everything. And the BDS movement, the boycott, divestiture, and sanctions, put so much pressure that eventually SodaStream had to shut the plant down. So those 600 Palestinians lost their jobs and went back into abject poverty. Now, who did that help? No one, especially the Palestinians. So my point in all of that is just to say that it's an important question that you've raised, but there's not going to be any solution for the Palestinians until they want one, and they want one recognizing that nobody, not even the Saudis, are going to annihilate Israel in order to make them get what they want. That's simply not going to happen. So they can either have a peaceful existence, or they can continue to be the spoiled little brat that refuses, to come inside and have the ice cream cone with the rest of the kids in the neighborhood.
Let's take a short break from this great interview with Mike Huckabee. How bad is it? Your back, knee, or neck pain? My knee pain was awful. I probably tried the same things you're trying to manage your pain. Topical ointments, pain relievers, fish oil, but nothing worked. Then I tried Omega XL. And here's why. The underlying cause of painful, achy joints and muscles is inflammation. The key is to knock down inflammation before it causes permanent damage. Backed by 35 years of research, that's exactly what Omega XL does. Nothing comes close to doing what Omega XL does. There's nothing like it. If you're suffering with painful, achy joints and muscles, stop wasting money and switch to Omega XL. Order Omega XL now and get a second bottle free. Visit omegaxl.com/Rudy. That's omegaxl.com/Rudy, or call 1-800-844-4888. 800-844-4888. Welcome back to the interview with Mike Huckabee. Governor, I assume when you were referring to the same failed policy being repeated over and over and over again, you were talking about starting somewhere in the early 90s, our attempt to get Palestine to reach a sensible peace accord. We got there once and Arafat turned it down, but then we keep making the same mistake. So we should mention Jared Kushner. So what Jared Kushner and the president did, they did an end around. Okay, we can't do that. Let's make peace with everybody else, and maybe that'll force them to be reasonable. To be reasonable about, it's quite reasonable to ask them to stop killing us. I mean, that wouldn't be bad. And create somewhat of an honest government. And maybe this will push them toward that. So I think it was a brilliant move.
It was an absolutely brilliant tactical move on the part of the president and his team. Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, David Friedman, all deserve a lot of credit for this. But it couldn't have happened, no matter who we name. It could not have happened had President Trump not had the guts to empower this to take place.
Absolutely.
And the willingness to try it. Nobody else was willing to give this a try because it goes so against conventional wisdom, and it goes against the way both Democrats and Republicans in Washington and in New York think about things. And that's why it's being successful, because Donald Trump has never been bound to the way it's been done before. And it's one of the reasons for his success as a president. One of the reasons that I feel it's so imperative that we make sure he is reelected. Because if we go back to the policies of Biden, Obama, and Kerry, instead of uh, doing something that they did, which was give the Iranians a plane load of cash on pallets, you know, Joe Biden's over there with a fistful of dollars. Donald Trump gives the Iranians the middle finger. You tell me which one is the more effective in this, and it's pretty obvious which one it is.
Well, Iran is having protests now 3 times a week. The regime, I don't know that they're ready to be overthrown, but they're weakened substantially. Yep. I would not be shocked if it happened. And their hegemony has been cut back and back and back. And even in Iraq, we're now making progress in establishing pro-American movements. So here's what I think is going to happen. And I have an anonymous whistleblower source that I can't reveal. He's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. But since they don't have enough prizes left because of the pandemic, they're going to take Obama's and give it to him because Obama, they gave him a peace prize, but then he made war, not peace. Yeah. No peace. Yeah. You can't find a peace agreement he did. We found a couple of wars he continued. So the Nobel people are very upset, and they're going to take it and they're going to scratch out Obama and they're going to put Trump. But I can't reveal my source.
I remember when that happened in January of 2009, they gave him the Peace Prize, and they even said, we're giving it to him for what he is going to do.
Well, he didn't do it. You got to get it back.
And it's like, wait, what is this? That's like saying, I'm going to get an Oscar for a movie I have not made yet, but we know it's going to happen. Or I'm going to get an Emmy for a television show that I've yet to ever do.
What do you think? You think that's a possibility? My idea might work. You could, it'd save money too. You wouldn't have to do a new. Governor, tell me very quickly, because we got to go, but tell me, what's his biggest liability in the election he's got to overcome? What's his biggest strength?
The biggest liability that the president has, quite frankly, is he takes his own victory sometimes and gives the media a distraction from his victories. If he says or tweets something that becomes the major reason the media can pull away from the good news and focus on something he has said, it's a distraction. Now, we're not going to change him. That's just the way it is. We're going to have to live with it, and I can live with that better than I can having a president that doesn't have courage and that doesn't get things done. But that's the liability. The plus is this is a president who has a truly remarkable record economically, foreign relations, deregulation, trade agreements, pushing back on China, and for the biggest voting bloc that will elect him, the evangelicals. He has been the most pro-life president. He has been the most supportive of Israel. He has been the best ever in history on religious liberty. And I think people understand that if he isn't reelected, there'll be yellow tape on a lot of church doors across America like we've seen during the pandemic.
Despite the fact that the polls, who knows, say that the people, like 60%, don't want him to do it. I remember how things changed in 2018 when they went after Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
I mean, we won 4 Senate seats based on that.
Yeah.
And I also think if it is Barrett, for example, it's going to bring up the whole, well, does it mean that a practicing Catholic is barred from the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
I thought we resolved that with Kennedy, and I think it'll become an issue not just for evangelicals, it'll become an issue for Catholics. And I'll tell you a secret about Catholics, because I am one. Half of them are practicing, half are not.
Yeah.
But when you attack their church, they all root for Notre Dame.
There.
It's like attacking your family.
Yeah.
Oh man. In fact, the non-practicing ones fight even harder because they're guilty. They feel guilty. It's like attacking your family. You're having an argument with your cousin, but then somebody else attacks your cousin. You know. So I think politically, I have no doubt that this will help him.
I think you're exactly right. And
it also makes him a man of his word. Makes him a man of his word, and we have so few of them. And we know Biden isn't. He's flipped on everything. Everything. Including the one that I think is the worst. He was pro-choice, but very narrowly.
Yeah.
He was against late-term abortion. He was in favor of warnings for abortion. He was pro-choice, and everything else was pro-life. He's wiped that all out, and now he's for murdering a baby, 1 minute before it's born.
Unbelievable.
And we have a slippery slope now where with Governor Northam, they want to do that even after the baby is born. And nobody pays attention. That's murder.
It is absolutely. And, Mayor, one of the things I think people need to remember, Joe Biden has more flip flops than Miami Beach on July 4th. This is a guy who has taken every position there is to take just to get elected. And that's not leadership. And it's not what we need. And he's not who we need. That's for sure.
We could have used you there, but we have you here, and your voice is very, very powerful, Governor. So keep it in good shape. We're going to need you for 6 more weeks. You're just about one of the best, one of the very, very best. When you made the analogy, a year ago, which kind of doctor would you like? The guy that's a little surly and he isn't as kind, but he's the greatest brain surgeon in the world? Or the guy who's sweet and nice and he's a brain surgeon, but when you look at him writing out a prescription, his hand's going like this. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Great to talk to you.
And give my love to the family. Great family.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well, that was surely both a really good substantive interview with the great former governor of Arkansas, who's transcended that and become a world figure now, although he had a great record as governor. I think he lived up to his early billing as being not only brilliant on issues, but really funny. Every other word out of his mouth is funny. He's sort of the Yogi Berra of politics, except his sayings make more sense. But he makes you laugh every third answer, which is great for delivering an attack. And I think his wisdom is also showed through. This man does advise the president. I think there should be even more of that, because I think he has a depth of wisdom that only a few people in Washington have. And I think it gives you a sense of where the race is. I think that's about as good an analysis as you're going to get. And now, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to do more of these to keep you abreast of where the election is and how it seems to be turning. So I want to thank Governor Huckabee. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back, very soon with another episode.